In 1967, a generation stood up. Righteous, furious. Don't trust anyone over 30, they said. Think for yourself. Question authority. Now, write that down. These are 3 sentences. They're the entire operating manual for a free human being. And they meant every word. Then they turned 30 and they buried every word. Because here's what happened. Not metaphorically, not theoretically, actually. The generation that burned draft cards started issuing them, except they got smarter about it, sneakier. You don't burn a draft card if you never see one. You just manufacture a reason. You dress it up, call it freedom, call it security, call it protecting the way of life that, coincidentally, makes certain people extraordinarily wealthy. Send the kids, build the infrastructure, then count the money. And if anyone notices, call them a traitor. Both sides do this. I want to be very clear about that. Both fucking sides. Every single time one side does it, the other side loses their mind with righteous fury, calls it what it is, names it correctly, prosecutes the argument with surgical precision, and then does it themselves immediately, without irony, without acknowledgement, without a single moment of, wait, didn't we just call them monsters for doing this exact same thing? Yes, you did. Now, 2004 is not that long ago. 2012 is not that long ago. The thing you're defending right now is the thing you were screaming about then. This is not politics. This is a racket with 2 uniforms. And everyone in the stadium has spent so long screaming at the other uniform that nobody, not once, not fucking once, has looked at the racket. So, the generation that told you to trust the experts became the experts. The generation that told you to question authority became the authority. The generation that burned its draft cards found more sophisticated ways to issue them. And then, with a straight face, with the absolute brass bald audacity of people who have completely lost the plot, looked you dead in the eye and said, trust the experts, we're in charge, and don't you dare fucking question our authority. The bumper sticker that said question authority, it's still on the car. The car is parked in the reserve space with the plaque with their name on it. They have the space paved over the protest site. This is not a metaphor. This is just Tuesday. And you watched all of it. And the breathtaking audacity, the world historical ballsy nerve of it, the sheer commitment to never once asking yourself the obvious fucking question is what you have to sit with. These are not stupid people. That's the thing. These are not stupid people. They read Ginsburg. They understood Ginsburg. They marched. They risked things. Some of them bled for it. And then they got comfortable. And comfort? Comfort is where principals go to quietly retire and never speak of what they used to believe at dinner parties. We were so idealistic back then. Yes, you were. What happened? No, seriously, what the actual fuck happened? Somewhere in this story, I'll get to it, one of these generations actually stumbled onto the answer, accidentally, while not trying, which is either poetic or fucking typical, depending on your outlook. But first, what I'm about to show you isn't comfortable. It isn't supposed to be. Enter Generation X, who grew up watching all of this, who were raised on all of this, who were handed the scorched ruins of the counterculture and told it was an inheritance, who looked at the boomers, really looked, saw the hypocrisy in full HD before HD existed, and arrived at the only sane diagnosis available. Fuck this. Fuck them. Fuck the whole performance. I've got my own shit to do. And then they picked up a guitar. Or didn't. Didn't matter, because Gen X didn't rebel against anything specific. That's the thing nobody understood at the time, and nobody has properly credited since. The boomers rebelled against the war, against the establishment, against the man. Specific targets, named enemies, a cause with a poster and a chant, and a very clear idea of what winning looked like. Gen X just screamed. At nothing in particular, at everything in general, at the whole idea that screaming needed a reason. Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols wasn't saying anything. That was the point. The dead Kennedys weren't offering a manifesto. They were offering a noise, a pure, unmeditated, context-free fuck you directed at the entire premise. And in doing so, accidentally, without meaning to, they demonstrated something 4 generations of careful thinkers completely missed. But I'll come back to that. Then came the Millennials. Jesus Christ, the Millennials? Told they were special by the generation that ate their future for breakfast, served with a side of, you should have bought less avocado toast, as if avocado toast was why the economy looked like that. See, the Millennials tried to fix it with their whole heart. They built frameworks. They named things that had never been named. They cared audaciously in a culture that had decided caring was embarrassing. And they got called soft for it by the generation that cried at Woodstock. The Millennials dissertated the problem. They substacked the problem, made a fucking podcast about the problem with citations. The problem remained because the problem was quite comfortable just being understood. Here's where the Millennials break your fucking heart. They were right about almost everything. The inequality, real. The rigged game, real. The gaslighting, industrial. Scale. It didn't matter because being right has never once automatically made anything different. They're still trying. Most days that's both heroic and heartbreaking before breakfast. Remember I mentioned one of these generations stumbled onto the answer? Well, it wasn't the ones with the frameworks. It wasn't the ones with the podcasts about the frameworks. It wasn't the ones who turned question authority into a reserved parking space. Keep watching. And then this crowd, Gen Z, they arrived and the analytical tools simply stopped working. They don't trust the boomers, obviously. They don't trust the institutions, obviously. They don't trust the frameworks about the institutions. They don't trust the discourse about the frameworks about the institutions. They looked at the entire inheritance, 4 generations of increasingly sophisticated thinking about the problem and said, yeah, and they grew up knowing the internet was a lie before they knew long division. They processed climate catastrophe as background noise before they hit puberty. They watched every institution they were supposed to trust fail in real time on a screen in their pocket before they were old enough to drive to the failure. And they're still here doing something. It doesn't look like what we recognize as doing something. It's faster and stranger and more ironic and somehow more sincere than anything the previous 3 generations managed. Or they've completely dissociated, and what looks like resilience is a very impressive coping mechanism, and we're all absolutely fucked. Genuinely unclear. You think it's them, don't you? The crowd with the irony and the speed and the thing they're doing that we can't quite name yet? Yeah, it's not them. You already met them. You probably wrote them off. So, 4 generations, each one certain they had the right approach, each one watching the previous approach fail and concluding the problem was the approach rather than the fact that every single approach was conducted entirely inside a human skull and then announced as if it was action, as if understanding was change, as if the perfectly calibrated take would eventually, if correct enough, if shared enough, rearrange the actual physical world. It won't. It hasn't. It never fucking did. The boomers thought their way into becoming the thing they hated. Millennials thought their way into being exhaustingly, heartbreakingly, correctly stuck. This crowd, Gen Z, is thinking in a language invented last Tuesday. Jury's out. And Gen X thought their way into, actually, wait. Here's the thing about Gen X. They didn't. That's the whole point. They didn't think their way into anything. They picked up the guitar, or they didn't. Started the business, or they didn't. Moved to a different city, or they didn't. Without waiting for the analysis to be complete, without waiting for the framework to be correct, without waiting for permission or validation or the culture to catch up or the right moment or the stars to align to their thoughts or their thoughts to finally make sense. Johnny Rotten didn't ask if punk was a good idea. He just screamed. The dead Kennedys didn't wait for a manifesto. They just made the noise. And the noise The pure content-free, context-free fuck you was not a thought. It was an action. It was the doing of the life without waiting for the thinking to give you the permission. That's it. That's the whole answer, dressed in a ripped t-shirt and safety pins going, anarchy in the USA. Nobody in particular. Not punk as aesthetic. Not punk as identity. Not punk as something to post about to a following. Punk as method. Show up, make noise, do the life. Don't wait for the thought to tell you it's safe. The thought will never tell you it's safe. That's not what thoughts do. Thoughts are weather patterns. You're not the weather. You live in the house that is, for the record, still on fire. It has been since 1967. All 4 generations stood outside it thinking about the fire. One of them accidentally picked up a bucket, then put it back down again, then wrote a very good song about it, but at least they picked it up, right? Which is more than anyone else managed. You just watch thoughts not be real for 60 years. You just watch 4 generations live outside in and wonder why nothing changed. You just watched what happens when the identity becomes the prison, the boomer identity. We are the revolution. That became the cage. The Gen X identity, we don't have an identity. That became the cage. The millennial identity, we are the ones who finally understand it, became the cage. Same cage, different costume. Mine was the successful business owner, worn so long, I forgot it was a costume. You have a costume. You know you have a costume. You've known for a while. Are you fucking tired of this yet? Because if you are, that's your door. Not motivation, not inspiration, not finally finding the right framework or the right analysis or the right person to explain it correctly. Tired. Tired is the most honest place anyone ever started from. You've spent 30 years being really fucking good at someone else's life. What about yours? Before we go, I want you to do something. Picture yourself at 22. Not the version of you performing now, the other one. The one who was going to fucking do something, whatever it was. The one who wasn't yet managing everything, who hadn't made the decision to learn to make themselves smaller, to make everyone else feel comfortable, who looked at the world like it owed him a fair fight. You remember him? He didn't leave. That disturbance you sometimes feel, that rage, the sadness, the thing you've been calling anxiety or temper or bad week, that's him. Still in there, still swinging, still punching up in weight class, screaming at you through the only channels you've left him. You didn't lose yourself. You traded yourself for a life that's strangling you because nobody, not one person on this earth enjoys even a great life when they can't be who they actually are. Not with anyone, especially not with themselves. The man who went quiet is where that conversation starts. 5 video lessons. They're free. The first one is the one he's been waiting for you to have. The link's below. Or if you already know, if you felt him just now and you're done waiting for the right moment, apply to work with me directly. This is not a discovery call, not a consultation, not a pitch dressed up as a conversation. 8 weeks, 1 outcome, you stop performing. Apply below. If you already know something's wrong, you've known for a while.